before I get to the preview for the 6 midweek games that's going to be happening this week, and by the way, this is going to be the last midweek action that we are going to have in MLS this regular season. Just a quick announcement. Tomorrow I will not be doing news of the week, and that I'm going to be delaying that till Thursday because tomorrow I am going to be going to this one, and that since this game kicks off really late and that I probably won't be back until 11 p.m. and I have to go to school the very next morning at 9 a.m., there is no way I would be doing a news of the week video when I come back, and that I'm probably going to lose my voice by the time I come back from this game. So that's going to be on Thursday. And the review for the midweek games is also going to be on Thursday. Again, I don't really have a lot of time to do the review or talk about news of the week on Wednesday, since once I get back, it's already going to be 11 p.m. And that I'm going to do the preview for the weekend action, most likely going to be either on Friday or Saturday, because the weekend's action this week is going to be on Sunday, and all the games is going to be on Sunday. And we're getting to the point of the season where this weekend's game, as I said, every game is going to be on Sunday, and that there's going to be two kind of slots between each of these games. So you have half the game that is going to be a 2 p.m. kickoff on my time and 5 p.m. Eastern time kickoff, and then the other half is going to be a 7:30 Eastern time kickoff and 4:30 p.m. my time kickoff. Before decision day, it's going to be all 12 games that's going to be happening right at the same time at 4 p.m. Eastern time and 1 p.m. Pacific time. But before that, let's talk about the midweek games, and that, these 6 midweek games, there is definitely a lot of playoff implication in these 6 midweek games. But perhaps the one that I think a lot of people would be keeping an eye on, and probably this is the best match out of the 6 midweek games that we have, and probably this match, I feel like they should have flexed this match to the weekend's action, because there is no way that you should be having a midweek games where the top 2 in the Eastern Conference goes head to head together. And that is exactly what is going to be happening in this game, as NYCFC is going to be taking on Atlanta United. NYCFC is currently 16-10-5, while Atlanta is 17-3-11. NYCFC, of course, 4 points ahead of Atlanta for that top spot in the Eastern Conference. And the reason why I want to really mention about that top spot in the Eastern Conference is that that is the spot that you are going to get a first round bye. So certainly both of these teams want to finish top spot so that they don't have to worry about potentially getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. And the remaining game of this season for both of these teams, for NYCFC, they still have a relatively tough schedule in their last 2 games. They have to go on the road against the Revs and then play against Philly, where that could potentially be a game that maybe decide who exactly is going to finish the top spot of the Eastern Conference. Well, for Atlanta, they have relatively a much easier schedule. They got Montreal on the road next, and then they play New England on decision day at home. But obviously the big story for Atlanta has to be with the health of Josef Martinez, and I'll probably mention this again in the news of the week, but from what I heard, he is going to be out for several weeks. They didn't exactly have a timeline of how many weeks that he's going to be out, but he's going to be out for several weeks, which means that most likely he's going to be out for the remaining of the regular season, and that he could be, depending on if Atlanta does get a first round bye, he could be out for that first round playoff kind of game. And that is huge for Atlanta, considering the fact that he is basically the main goal scorer for this team, and that I really think that if Atlanta does not have Josef Martinez for the playoffs, I think it's going to be not only tough for them to repeat as champion, but it's going to be a huge blow that I don't think that that's going to get them very deep into the playoff. Like, he's really the heart and soul of that team. He's kind of like a Miguel Almiron kind of player of last season, where, remember last season, Miguel Almiron was out of the team at this part of the season, and look what happened to Atlanta. They literally fall apart. So, this could happen with Atlanta again heading down the stretch, but hopefully, they will get Joseph back before the playoffs begin, and that if they don't have Joseph back before the playoff begins, they're going to have to deal with it and hope that he could, of course, come back in time for that second round playoffs in that conference semifinal game. If they, of course, would advance to that point. And, for NYCFC, if they can win this game, I think most likely they will clinch their spot. I mean, I think they'll clinch their spot if they win this game against Atlanta and hope that Philly, of course, draw or lose their game, because I think if Philly lose or draw their game and they win this game against Atlanta, it will be mathematically impossible for Atlanta or the Union to potentially catch up to NYCFC. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Minnesota versus Sporting KC. So Minnesota is currently 14-7-10, while SKC is currently 10-7-14. Playoff implication for both teams: Minnesota will clinch their playoff spot with a win or a Timbers versus Quakes tie or loss. So it's kind of something very similar to last week, where if the Quakes and the Timbers would lose their game, then they, of course, would clinch the playoffs. Although, unfortunately, in that last game, while the Quakes did lose that game, Minnesota wasn't able to pull out a victory over the Timbers, so they're technically not secure in terms of their playoff spot. While SKC, well, they are just barely hanging on in terms of not getting eliminated, but they will be eliminated from the playoffs if the Quakes and Portland would win their game. And pretty much, when you look at the team between 9th through 11th place, those three teams will be eliminated if Portland and the San Jose Earthquakes is able to pick up wins against them. So this is a big game for Sporting KC, and that this is really the last hope, where if they do lose this game and if the Quakes and Portland is able to pick up victory, then they will be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And that soon I'm going to have to do a moving forward series about them, of what has just been a very disappointing year. And I'll tell you what, this also reminds me the fact that I remember in the beginning of the season, I think I predicted SKC to finish top of the Western Conference. Yeah, that is, and we're gonna get to that video when I go back to look at my prediction in the regular season, and boy, I had some that was just completely wrong, and I think Sporting KC is the one of those that I just got completely wrong in terms of my prediction back in February. But in terms of remaining games of the season for both teams, for Minnesota, they got LAFC next at home and then go to Seattle on the road, so that's definitely not going to be easy, which is why I think it's very important for them to clinch now in this game against SKC, since this is an SKC team that just do not have a lot of confidence whatsoever, and that they don't have to worry about it once they, of course, face the best team in the league in the next match, and then have to go on the road against Seattle for the last game of the season. While for SKC, their next two games, they have Portland at home in the next game before have to go to Dallas on decision day. But like I said, Sporting KC, they are very close in terms of getting eliminated, and that I really think that these last couple resort has really just tells me that this team most likely will not make the playoffs, even though if they can stay off elimination with a win against the Loons in this game. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is RSL versus the Galaxy. So, the RSL is currently 14-5-12, and the Galaxy is currently 15-3-13. Playoff implication: RSL can clinch the playoff spot with a win and a Portland and San Jose tie, while the Galaxy can clinch the playoffs with an RSL win. In terms of the remaining schedule for both of these teams, for RSL, they play against Houston next at home before going on the road against Vancouver, so that's relatively a pretty soft schedule. And as for Galaxy, their schedule is kind of the same, and except it's kind of a little bit flip-flop, with them playing against Vancouver next at home and then playing against Houston on the road for that decision day game. And that, for the Galaxy, as I said, they can clinch the playoffs if they get a win against RSL, although getting a win at RSL and getting a win at Rio Tinto Stadium is hard as it gets these days. And, certainly with RSL having these two home games next left to play, they certainly want to win both of these home games so that they can get themselves a home playoff game in the playoffs. So yeah, this will definitely be very interesting. And keep in mind, both of these teams are also only separated by 1 point in the standing. I believe RSL currently have the last spot in terms of the team that will host a playoff game in the first round, while the Galaxy are just looking outside in. So it's not just that both teams have a chance to clinch the playoffs, but both teams wants to get a win so that they could have a big chance of potentially getting a home game for their first round of the playoffs. But moving on into the next game is LAFC versus the Dynamo. So LAFC currently is 19-8-4, while the Dynamo is currently 11-4-16. And LAFC, of course, with a win or a loss or tie that NYCFC will have against Atlanta, they of course will clinch Supporters Shield. And it's kind of ironic the fact that we've been saying for a couple of weeks that LAFC have a chance to clinch their Supporters Shield and that all they need is a win to do that, but they haven't done that whatsoever. In that, in the last 5 games, they have yet to taste victory and got all 3 points this last 5 game, which for a team that has just been on a different level to everybody else, that is kind of a little bit surprising. While the Dynamo, they of course will be eliminated from the playoffs if Portland and San Jose of course gets the win. It's basically the same case with SKC, where if Portland and the Quakes win this midweek, then they of course will be eliminated from the playoffs. And I have a feeling most likely between SKC and Houston, who is going to be the most likely to be eliminated from the playoffs with a loss, it will most likely be Houston. I mean, LAFC, they definitely want to end this winless run that they have. I know that some LAFC fan is kind of a little bit concerned with the fact that the team has kind of gone cold, and that, they just find out a couple of weeks ago that Diamande will not be part of this team because he voluntarily decided to be part of the drug abuse and substance policy that MLS had. So, they lose a big piece in terms of the attack there, and that, it's really kind of all up to Vela and company to try to get this team in a winning run before they head to the playoffs. Because if they don't get on a winning run, and if they do not try to find a different ways to win games and try some different way where teams are not going to figure them out, because I have a feeling some teams have started to figure out how to play against LAFC, and that if they do not adjust that, boy, they're going to be in trouble heading into the playoffs, even with that number 1 seed, and even though they are going to basically have the road to MLS Cup will have to come into Bank of California Stadium, and if they aren't able to take advantage of that or head to the playoffs on a cold run, they could seriously be looking at a similar fate that they had last season, where last season they had a great season heading into the playoffs, and then it just all fell apart against RSL, where they of course lost in the first round. But moving on into the next game, remaining game for both of these teams. For LAFC, they still got Minnesota and Colorado as their remaining game. And for the Dynamo, they got RSL and Houston for the remaining game of this season. Or actually, not Houston, but against the Galaxy for their last game of the season. They're not playing themselves, okay, for the last game of the season. But yeah, either way, guys, next up, we got the Timbers against New England, and boy, do Portland desperately need a win in this game. The Timbers is currently 13-5-13, while the Revs are currently 10-11-10. And I'll also just go ahead and say that if there is a game where I would call the desperation derby, this will exactly be the one, because both of these teams are certainly on a bit of a bad run. New England, I believe they only have like one game out of their last 9 match, and that streak that cold run kind of started after they got on an 11-game unbeaten streak. While the Timbers, we know how their home struggle has been the biggest story of this season, and that they have pretty much now dropped points in 5 of the last 7 home games that they have, and that, in terms of the playoff implication, because of that home struggle, they are still in that position where they kind of find themselves heading into this long home stretch where they are right around along the playoff line and right on that bubble of potentially making the playoffs, and that they're currently tied with the Quakes with the last spot in the playoffs, but the Quakes currently has the tiebreaker because they score more goals than what Portland has right now. Well, for New England, they are currently 3 points above the red line, and that this is pretty much the game in hand that they have over over everybody else that is below them, and that I'm pretty sure everybody else that is below them in the Eastern Conference, so like Montreal, Orlando City, and even Chicago, is going to be heavily rooting for the Timbers to get a win against the Revs, so that now the Revs are not going to have that game in hand anymore, and that they didn't take advantage of that game in hand to basically get a chance to getting closer of clinching playoffs. But the remaining game for both of these teams, for Portland, they go on the road in the next game against Sporting KC before finishing this season against the San Jose Earthquakes on decision day, and something tells me this could maybe decide who exactly is going to make the playoffs and who exactly is going to miss out. And as for New England, their last two match is not going to be any easier. They got NYCFC at home before have to go on the road against Atlanta United on decision day, and that for the Revs, the sooner they clinch the playoffs, the better it will be for them, considering the next two games, I really don't see how in the world they are able to get all 3 points against both of these teams. But at the same time, Portland themselves, they want to get something going, and they need to score a goal. Like, this team have not scored in almost 300 minutes right now, and that they got to eventually break this kind of goal drought that they have at home, because right now nobody on this team can score a goal, and that if somebody on this team can able to finally score a goal, that will really potentially open a floodgates. And that we've seen so many times when a team struggle to score a goal, all you need is to put one into the back of the net, and all that kind of pressure of you trying to put the ball in the back of the net is going to be off of you, and that's when the floodgate could be open in terms of goal scoring. And there's no doubt that could happen with the Timbers, especially with the talent they have on the attacking end. But that brings us to the last game of this week, which is a game that I'm going to be attending, and this game kicks off at 8 p.m. my time, which is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that the Quakes decided to kick off that late at night, and that this is the latest kickoff game of all season. Like, I understand the reason why the Quakes decided to schedule a pretty late kickoff game is because they want to make sure everybody can attend this game, and that, Bay Area traffic is very bad, and that if you start this game at 7 or 7:30, not many people is going to get there, which I understand. But at the same time, this game will be end at around 10 o'clock, and that for people like me that have to go to work the very next day or go to school the very next day very early on, I don't think it's particularly good idea, the fact that of course is the case. But, going back to this game, or one other thing that I also want to mention this game, Wando actually tweeted out today that he will be attending this game, and that he will actually be in the ultra section and supporting the team there. And I'm not quite sure if the league have any policy of the fact that if you are suspended, you're not allowed to not only have contact with the team, but actually be in the stadium and cheering for the team. But I'm guessing probably the league don't have that policy, and if they do have that policy, I have a feeling the Ultras is going to literally be like Wando's bodyguard, and that if the security want to kick out Wando, that they're going to have to go through the Ultra. And I'll tell you what, something tells me it's going to get ugly if the Ultras is going to have to fight against the security in terms of trying to keep Wando in the Ultra section. But that's kind of something very interesting to see. And also, by the way, I know a lot of people is going to say, well, I'm going to just go to the Ultra section and of course hang out with Wando. But here's the thing, if you want to be in the Ultra section, you got to first buy those supporter tickets, which is only a limited amount, or you have to of course contact to the Ultras in terms of getting a tickets to the game. And because of the fact that since now Wando is potentially going to be in in the terrace and cheering on the team, yeah, tickets is definitely gonna go by very fast, and that it won't. As I'm speaking right now, maybe the tickets is already sold out in terms of the standing only section, and that ever since I know last year when the Quakes changed their policy of the fact that you cannot stand in the standing terrace unless you have a supporter tickets, then yeah, you can of course be there. So yeah, if you're going to trying to be in the standing terrace and you want to be with the Ultra, I suggest you better act right now before the tickets, of course, would be sold out. But anyway, going back to this game, as I kind of got a little bit off topic, the Quakes, of course, playing against the Union, and the Quakes currently have a record of 13-5-13, while Philly currently have a record of 15-7-9. Playoff implication, obviously, as I mentioned, the Quakes are tied with Portland in terms of being just above the red line, but the Quakes does have the tiebreaker because they have scored more goals than the Timbers has had so far this season. While Philly currently is 6 points behind NYCFC for that top spot, and there's no doubt that if they do lose this game against the Quakes, I think their chances of getting the top spot in the Eastern Conference could be all but done. I mean, I know they do play against NYCFC on the final day of the season, and as I mentioned before, that could be a decider that will decide who exactly is going to get the top spot of the Eastern Conference. But they also have to go on the road against Columbus, and that Columbus is a team that is kind of like the Rapids right now in terms of playing the spoiler road and making sure teams do not get a win when they come to their house. But in terms of the remaining game for the Quakes, obviously they have one more home game, which is against the Sounders, and then they have to go on the road against the Timbers, which could be a game that decide who will make the playoffs, whether it's the Timbers going to get that last spot or the Quakes are going to get that last spot in the Western Conference. But yeah, I mean, certainly the Quakes, there's going to be a lot of odds that is going to against them, even though they're playing at home in this game. Obviously, no Wando in this game, no Espinoza in this game, no Almeida in this game, and if it was hard enough for the Quakes to try to get 3 points in these next two home games, yeah, it just got a lot tougher now that we are going to be missing our best player, best goal scorer, and also our best coach in this team for this game. But if they want to make the playoffs, and if they want to make sure that that last game of the season against the Timbers will not decide the fate of them either making the playoffs or not, they have to win this game against the Union. And the Union themselves, they obviously are dealing with injuries to their team. And also, you got to keep in mind, they are a team that is going to be traveling all the way across the other side of the country to play a midweek games on short rest. So they're going to definitely be very tired out. And that this is something that the Quakes could potentially take advantage of it. So, yeah, we're going to see how that game will go out. And I have a feeling, in that match vlog, expect me gonna be yelling a lot, and that there's definitely gonna be some emotion in that match vlog. Like, this might be one of the most emotional match vlog that I have ever done of all my time doing match vlog for the San Jose Earthquakes. So yeah, there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of all 6 of these games, and let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 6 of these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.